Well, welcome to the fun and mentals of real estate. I hope you have a little bit of fun today, but we might have a little bit of mentals. I don't know. I'm your host here, Angela Dillmon, at the Dillmon Group at Keller Realty, Chesterfield, and these are my wealth building partners.
Hey, Glen Calvin, Guild Mortgage.
And Josh Gulledge.
And Josh Gulledge, our expert buyer agent, is again here today because we have a question of the day to you that I think Josh and Glenn are both going to help answer. And our question of the day is, do all debts count against you when you're qualifying to buy a home?
Before we answer that, what are we here to do?
We are here to help you build wealth,
live your dream lifestyle,
and leave legacies that matter.
What kind of legacies, Josh?
Yeah, there's a lot, spiritual, family, and financial, and really I love to spend all the time I can to help people build the family and the financial. Again, memories in the house and build wealth while they're doing it.
While they're doing it. That's awesome. Okay, so last week we were talking about John. He's a first-time home buyer that you recently helped. And we changed the name to protect the innocent.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Okay, all right. See, we're good. So how did John finally get to the point where he actually contacted Glenn?
Yeah, so we were getting much more serious. We had kind of come up with our initial plan. We had a house in mind.
Oh, we had a house in mind. So he actually needed to see a house to kind of get motivated?
We did, yeah.
Okay.
And it was, again, that's where a lot of the floodgates opened on questions on, again, there were questions on some hard money. There was questions on monthly payments. I mean, there are, again, lots of financial questions and how the process worked. And that's just not, again, I try to stay in my lane of expertise, and I knew that we needed an expert. And so I said, hey, you really need to call Glenn and talk to him about it. And I made sure before I sent him over there, because this is a common misconception that people have is, when they fill out these applications, or they can call on the phone too, is they typically run their budgets on how much they make. Like, what does their paycheck say?
Like what are their take home?
They take home gross pay, but net pay. But whenever I make sure that they talk to a lender, make sure you tell the lender your gross pay, not what you're taking home, but how much is on the top line, because that's what lenders need. That's
what lenders need. So typically what we do then is send you a link. It takes about 15 minutes to fill out at tops. It's a little online application. It goes right to Glenn. Glenn gets to see it. You run the credit first.
Yes.
And the credit. Does that hurt my credit?
It doesn't, and that's a misconception, and we really can't do our job without it.
Yeah. All right. So he runs the credit. He sees the application and whether there's a co-borrower or not, right? And all your income and all your debts and all the things. And then you pick up the phone and call him. So what does that conversation look like?
Right. So before I pick up that phone and call him, not only do we run the credit report, and the reason I prefer to do it on the link, and certainly you don't have to. I still take plenty of loan applications over the phone.
Sure.
But doing it on your own keeps me from typing in a wrong Social Security, which can cause trouble down the road. But once I get that application, a lot of times if your employer works with a certain payroll service, we get all your income. So I don't need a pay stub and I don't need a W-2.
Yeah. So what times that's what you need? You need pay stubs, W-2s, what else?
We're in pay stub, W-2, and then we need asset statements, where the funds for the down payment.
Right, saving statements, 401ks.
And one thing that I'd say in the long time that I've been doing this business, the barriers to entry for the first-time home buyer have come down so much.
Right.
I mean, you don't need a down payment. The sellers can pay the closing costs. So it's so great. So I've got that application. I've got my credit report.
Okay.
I'm going to start with some preliminary numbers that they've put in there just to give us a reference point of what it is. And then we're going to have a conversation.
Okay. So what's this conversation look like?
So the conveation is, what's your comfort level? We talked about this last week.
Right. A lot of times, what's your budget?
Yes.
Right?
A lot of times you feel like you're going to be qualified for a lot more than you feel comfortable paying.
Right, and actually it's a good thing because you want to look like a great buyer. So if they're going to qualify you for $500, but you only want to buy a house for $300,000, it's going to make you look like a great buyer. So it's a great thing that they approve you for more.
There's other times when we're pushing it too. We can go up on the debt-to-income ratio. So when I talk about debt-to-income ratios, I'm saying we're going to look at your gross monthly income, not your net, and then we're going to look at the first percentage of what that is to your house payment or proposed house payment. And then we're going to look at all your other debts.
So there's two ratios. It's called a front and a back end. And back in the day, it was like your house payment couldn't exceed any more than 28% of your gross monthly income.
Yep.
But now it's different. So, and then it was
28
like
and 36. 28 the front rate.
36% of your gross monthly minus all your debts and your house payment, and whichever number was lower, that's what you got qualified for. But it's different now.
It really is. So on that front ratio, we'll go up into the low 40s. And
wow.
on certain types of loans, we can go over 50% on a VA or FHA, and on a conventional loan, right around 50.
So,
right,
Glenn, to answer our question of the day, are all debts counted against you?
Yeah, so this is an important part of this conversation, right? So he's saying, hey, I've got your gross monthly, and I've got all your debts.
Analysis of the credit report. We're gonna make sure they're all yours for one thing. We're going to look at any mistakes. But then let's say you have a car payment and you're almost done with it. You only have 9 or 10 payments left. We don't have to count that debt.
Well, you don't have to count a car payment against me if I have, 10 months or less?
Right. Any installment loans, 10 months or less, we're not going to count that.
Any installment. That includes credit cards?
It does not include. That's revolving.
Oh, that's revolving. So what other kind of debt besides a car would that be?
If you had medical collections, those don't come into play. Although they can affect your credit score, we don't look at them.
They don't count a medical collection. So if you're thinking that's holding you up, it's not.
Right. And so when I say I don't want anybody to look at my credit, we can't do our job. We can't help you without looking at the credit. So that's going to be the first thing that we're.
All right. What else doesn't count against you? Utility bills? Do they count against me?
Good point. Yeah, we don't look at utility bills. We don't look at your Netflix subscription. We don't look at a gym membership. It really comes down to money that you've borrowed. Revolving debt, credit cards, installment debt, student loans. Those are the ones that we're going to.
So on credit cards, is it a minimum payment on my credit card that counted against me, or is it a percentage of the whole debt I have?
No, it's the minimum payment. It's going to be whatever shows up on the.
Okay, so if they only require $100 from you a month or $25 from you a month, that's all you're holding against me on this income to debt ratio formula deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
And different types of loan have different ratios. That's another reason to get screened and why starting with the lender is so incredibly important. All right, so you're also going to come up with this cash to close thing, right?
We're going to look at all the expenses when it goes to buying a house. You've got your appraisal, you've got lender fees, you've got title insurance. We talked about the escrow.
Yeah, which we'll talk about all those things in the next podcast.
We're going to look at that bottom line number, but then we're also going to talk about the seller can pay up to a certain percentage of the closing costs. We can get grants, and some of our first-time home buyers, we've got an excellent one now for first-time home buyers that can get $3,000 that can go towards paying the closing costs. So we're going to look at all
what are
those.
some of the screening qualifications for these first-time? What is a first-time home buyer?
Somebody that hasn't bought a house within 3 years. So you
3
got
years?
a house 10 years ago, but you haven't bought one, and we would still consider you a first-time
own a
home
home, not bought one. But you haven't owned a home, doesn't show up on your tax record. Your tax
That's a good point.
Your income taxes for the last 3 years, so you can become a first-time home buyer again. Right.
And we're going to look at the average median income, and that's going to be a certain number. And if you make too much money, you might not be qualified.
You might not be qualified. So that's one of the screenings.
Yep.
So what's another screening for them?
Certainly your credit score. You're going to have a certain minimum credit score.
What's typically a minimum kind of range that I have to qualify
I think with the MHDC, it's 640 for that program.
That's pretty low. Some people are like, hey, my credit report's only like 640. I don't think I can get them. Like, yes, you can. People think they got to be above 700, but you don't.
And we can move that credit score too. We can manipulate. And the other thing we can look at is maybe you've got $30,000 for a down payment, but we're going to look at all your debts combined. So maybe it makes sense to only put down 10 or 15,000 of that and retire some other debt.
Oh, and then
it's just doing. I always call it, it's a junior high math problem.
Right.
But once I have the credit report, once I have your income. Now, if I don't have your income verified from the application, I'm going to want to get your last 2 pay stubs. I'm going to get your W-2s.
And you're going to get your tax returns?
We don't always need the tax returns.
Okay,
if you're self-employed or 1099, we may. We're looking for the W-2s and the pay stubs. And this is the initial process. But we need a 2-year work history.
All right, so wait a minute. What if I just got out of college and got my first job?
Yes, so we're count college as work.
Okay.
So if you're out of college, you graduate in May, you've got your new job, you're starting in June or July, we can actually count that as 2 years.
Okay, what if I was working for a while? Josh, you've come up with a scenario with some people. Like, I've worked for a while, and I maybe haven't worked for 3 months. I had like a 3-6 month gap because maybe, I had a health issue or whatever, and then I went back to work. You have a lot of buyers like that, right?
Yeah.
It happened. Like, so
then we're going to want 2 years. We're going to go back 2 years and 3 months. And then we're going to get
go back a little bit further.
Some kind of reasonable explanation of why.
Okay.
Didn't work.
So don't let the 2-year work history stop you.
I wouldn't let any of it stop me. I would get on the phone and talk to Josh, talk to me. My joke I always say, I never say no. I just might say not now.
Not now.
And here's what we need to do. And you'd be surprised at how quickly you can get yourself into a good position.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people, I could never buy a house because my credit is horrible, and I run their credit report and it's 670, 680. That's not horrible.
That's not horrible. It's good.
Right. I have other people tell me I can buy any house, my credit's perfect, and it's 580.
Right.
I can't buy a house. So
and we got to work on it.
Just knowing.
Yeah,
Right.
some independent contractors, especially if they're more contract based and they might have been working a huge job for the last year, say building a house or something,
Right.
and they don't have one right now, but they plan on starting another project in 2 months. Well, they can still, we can still work around that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tricky too with hourly workers because somebody got a raise. Now they're making $25 an hour, but in the past they've been making 15. We're going to look at an average. It's not rocket science, but it is complicated. It takes some thinking and takes some time, but it all starts filling out that application and get on the phone.
Right.
And I think with John, I can remember clearly, just the misconceptions that he had. And we talked before about creating clarity, that this is what it looks like.
Clarity is
And then
power.
it's so simple to say, well, what it would look like if I bought and it was $20,000 more. Well, then I give them the loan scenario. This is what that looks like. What it would look like if the sellers paid the closing costs. What if I found a house $250,000 less?
So another reason to start with the lender is it helps create the buying strategy.
It really does.
And part of Josh's, really his buyer consultation is after you've talked to Glenn, now we're going to come up with some strategies on how we can get you in a home. And that's why it's important to start with Glenn.
And I'm always going to send you that scenario, the pre-approval letter. We've got a great home buyers packet that will kind of reinforce some of the information that we talked about. It's just getting that knowledge. Yeah,
there you go. Clarity is power, and you need to be clear on your numbers. Figure out your budget, what you're comfortable with a month. And between Glenn and Josh, we will help you figure out what price range and where you can find that dream home, right? Because we're here to help you build wealth and live your dream lifestyle, right?
And leave legacies that matter.
And leave legacies that matter.
And don't be intimidated with that call. I'm not going to bite your head off. I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah.
We're just going to find out where you're at and how to get you where you want to be.
And how to get you where you want to be. And if it's not now, it might be soon. So next week, we're going to talk about the loan estimate and go into that in a little bit of detail. And hopefully that'll help you for more clarity. Awesome. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.
All right.